The surface of the Persian Gulf was flat, almost unnaturally flat, the kind of stillness that makes experienced sailors pause. Aboard the guided missile destroyer, the watch teams stood their stations, radar screens painted clean. Guns were quiet. The air smelled like salt and jet fuel, and somewhere off the port quarter, just below the edge of visibility, eight small craft had already begun to move. No one on the bridge knew it yet, but in less than 4 minutes, every system on that ship would be active, every weapon station manned, and a decision would be made that could reshape the next 12 hours of global news. The destroyer was operating in the southern Persian Gulf, running a routine transit through one of the most heavily monitored waterways on Earth. These missions happened constantly. U.S. Navy warships moved through the Strait of Hormuz and surrounding corridors with regularity, maintaining freedom of navigation in international waters. For the crew, it was another day in a long deployment. The ship had been at sea for months, watch us rotating through its cable. The operations centered on the hum of consoles, cooling fans, and the occasional click of the keyboard. On the bridge, the officer of the deck scanned
Red
the
alert!
horizon
Reach in
with
Sector 4.
binoculars.
Confirmed, it's escalating fast. Rerouting now, need support.
Copy, locking it down.
Container
Red
ships,
level critical!
a few fishing
All
dhows
stations
drifting
report
lazily near the
status.
coastline.
Reroute
Everything
auxiliary
was
power to
cataloged.
shields. Hold
Everything
steady.
was tracked.
Prepare for
the
evasive.
combat information center below decks monitored. Cross-referencing radar returns with eyes transponder data, matching contacts to known vessel types. It was methodical. It was routine. The bridge-to-bridge radio carried occasional chatter from merchant vessels. Nothing unusual. The captain was in his chair reviewing message traffic. The ship was at a standard readiness condition. Weapon systems were powered but not active. The crew was alert but not alarmed. That changed in 40 minutes past. Albert, on one of the radar operators from the combat information center, noticed a return on the scope.
All units, suspect is
Small,
mobile. Move in, I
fast,
mark. No
emerging
mistakes,
from
this is
behind
our
a cluster
window.
of commercial
Execute.
vessels near the Iranian coastline. At first it registered as a possible fishing boat. The speed was moderate. At heading was unremarkable. The operator
Eyes
noted
sharp!
that the
Report
track
any
log
movement!
continued scanning,
Port gun locked
but
and
then a second
tracking!
contact
Starboard clear, ready to
same
fire!
area, same speed, slightly different heading. Both were moving away from the coast and into the open waterway. The operator flagged it to the tactical action officer, not because it was alarming, but because it was worth watching. Two small craft operating together near a known IRGCN patrol. Zoning was not unusual, but standard procedure required monitoring. The tactical action officer acknowledged and pulled up the tracks on display. He watched them for 30 seconds. Their courses were diverging slightly, fanning out as they moved south. And then a third contact appeared. This one was faster. Within 90 seconds, the scope showed 5 distinct tracks. All small, all fast, all emerging from the same general area near the Iranian coast. They were spreading out in a pattern that looked deliberate, not random, not commercial.
Check
the
the radar
tactical
logs.
action officer picked
Something's
up the
off.
phone and called
Confirmed.
the bridge.
Unidentified
His voice
contact
was calm,
2 miles out.
measured.
Post-incident
He reported
signature.
multiple fast-moving surface contacts bearing northwest, tracking south, and fanning into what appeared to be a coordinated formation. That captain set down his message traffic. He didn't say much. He asked for continuous updates. Then he ordered the ship to increase its readiness posture. What had been a quiet afternoon was now something else entirely. But here's where the
All
situation
stations stand down.
became
Report
genuinely
status.
dangerous.
Copy.
The
Standing
pattern
down.
those boats were
Good
forming
work.
had a name.
Stay alert.
It was called a swarm. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' Navy units had practiced this tactic for years. The concept was straightforward and deeply
Wind's picking
effective.
up.
Multiple
Keep
small,
sharp.
fast,
Roger
maneuverable
that.
boats would
Eyes on the
approach a
horizon.
larger warship from different angles simultaneously. They would close distance rapidly, exploiting the fact that a single ship's weapon systems could only engage so many targets at
tonight.
once. Some of the
Aye.
boats might
Reminds me
carry
of home.
anti-ship missiles.
We all need that.
Others might carry
We do.
rockets, heavy machine guns, or even explosives rigged for a direct impact attack. The strategy did not rely on any single boat surviving. It relied on overwhelming the targets. That ability to respond against a commercial vessel or an unprepared warship, it could be devastating. The US Navy had studied this tactic extensively after incidents in the Gulf dating back decades. War games had been built around it. Defensive protocols had been designed specifically to counter it, but studying a tactic and facing it in real time are two entirely different things. By the time the radar picture updated again, the count had risen to 8.8 fast attack craft, all now tracking directly toward the destroyer. Their speed was increasing. They had abandoned any pretense of routine patrol or fishing activity. Their formation was widening, creating a fan-shaped approach designed to present the ship with multiple simultaneous threat vectors.
Threat confirmed.
The range
Bearing
was
270.
closing, and it was
Copy, lead.
closing
Base arming.
fast.
ETA 30
The tactical
seconds.
action
Jamming
officer
active.
called
Tracking
out the
locked.
range.
Standing by.
20,000 yards, then 18, then 15. At the speeds these boats were making, the window for decision-making was shrinking by the second. The captain ordered the ship to general quarters. The alarm cut through every compartment. Sailors moved with trained precision, sealing hatches, donning protective gear, and sprinting to their battle stations. In the combat information center, the room transformed. Every console was now fully manned. Every system was active. The air defense coordinator, the surface warfare coordinator, the electronic warfare operator, all were locked into their roles. The ship's SPY radar, normally tracking air contacts, was now also painting the surface picture in high resolution. Fire control radars began sweeping. The ship's weapon systems transitioned from standby to ready. The 5-inch gun forward trained out toward the approaching contacts. The close-in weapon system spun up.
Multiple
Gatling
feeds
style barrel
converging.
assembly
Fusion at
beginning its
80%.
rotation cycle,
Contact
ready to
acquired.
engage
Monitoring
anything that crossed
trajectory.
inside its defensive envelope. And still the boats kept coming. Bridge-to-bridge radio warnings were transmitted on international maritime frequencies. The messages were clear, direct, and repeated. This is United States warship. You're approaching a coalition warship operating in international waters. Your actions are unsafe and unprofessional. Alter course immediately. There was no response. The boats did not slow down. They did not alter course. They maintained their spread formation and continued to close. Range dropped below 10,000 yards. At this distance, the engagement timeline compressed dramatically. If any of those boats carried anti-ship missiles, they were now approaching effective launch range. If they were rigged for a direct impact attack, they were minutes away from reaching the ship. The captain now faced a decision that no amount of training can fully prepare you for. Rules of engagement in the Persian Gulf were precise but layered. The crew had the right to defend the ship, but the threshold for opening fire required clear hostile intent and hostile action. The boats had not locked on. Radar, their behavior, the speed, formation, the refusal to respond. A direct approach vector painted a picture that was unmistakable to anyone who understood the threat. What happened next unfolded in less than 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes contained more coordinated military activity than most people will ever witness. The destroyer activated its full electronic warfare suite. Jammers engaged across multiple frequency bands, targeting the communications and radar systems the Iranian boats relied on for coordination. The effect was immediate. The tight formation began to waver. Boats that had been maintaining precise spacing started to drift. Their coordination, which depended on shared communications, was being disrupted at the source. Simultaneously, the ship launched countermeasure rockets, chaff rounds that bloomed in the air, creating false radar signatures designed to confuse any missile guidance systems that might be active. The ship also began evasive maneuvering, not the
Contact
dramatic
bearing
hard turns of a
247,
movie,
speed 50
but
knots.
calculated
Update on
course
altitude.
changes designed
Confirmed,
to complicate
30,000.
targeting solutions while maintaining the ship's own weapons arcs. The 5-inch gun tracked the lead boat. Fire control had a solution. The close-in weapons system tracked independently, slave to its own radar, ready to engage autonomously if anything inbound was detected. On the bridge wings, sailors manned crew-served weapons, 50 caliber machine guns trained outward, their operators watching through optics with fingers indexed along trigger guards. Warning shots were authorized. The 50 caliber on the starboard side fired a controlled burst into the water ahead of the nearest boat. The sound was enormous, sharp, rhythmic, absolute. The spray from the impacts rose white against the dark water, and then something shifted. The lead boat broke off. It was subtle at first, a slight course change, a reduction in speed. Then the second boat followed, and the third. One by one, the 8 fast attack craft began to pull away from their approach vectors. Their formation collapses, not in panic, but in recognition. The swarm had been met with something it was not designed to overcome: a ship that was ready, a crew that did not hesitate, and a layered defense that turned every angle of approach into a calculated disadvantage. The electronic warfare champion had severed their coordination. The countermeasures had clouded their senses. The warning shots had made the consequences tangible, and behind all of it, the fire control systems remained locked on. Every boat was tracked.
Contacts are spiking
Every
across
solution
all
was ready.
sectors.
The
I'm seeing
Iranians
it,
knew
prioritizing the red
Their
threats
own
now.
radar warning
One's breaking
receivers
pattern.
were
Get a
screaming.
lock.
They were painted, targeted, measured. The ship had not yet fired a single defensive weapon. That restraint was not weakness. It was dominance expressed through control. Within 4 minutes, all 8 boats had reversed course. They moved back toward the Iranian coastline, their formation dissolving into scattered, individual tracks. The radar, the combat information center continued tracking until they were well inside Iranian territorial waters. No one relaxed immediately. General quarters remained set for another 45 minutes. Weapon systems stayed active. The electronic warfare suite continued monitoring for any risk. The captain remained in his chair, watching the displays, saying very little. Reports flowed in from every department. No damage, no casualties, no rounds fired offensively. The ship continued its transit. The sea was calm again, in the hours that followed. The incident was reported through the chain of command. Intelligence teams analyzed the radar electronic warfare. The encounter was classified, assessed, and filed alongside. dozens of similar events that had occurred in the Gulf over the years. No press conference was held. No dramatic announcement was made. The crew, secured from general quarters, returned to their watch rotations and continued the mission. But something had changed. Not on the surface, not in any way that could be photographed or measured. It changed in the space between what almost happened and didn't. 8 boats had tested the warship. They had pushed to the edge of the line once across, but not yet crossed. And they were met not with chaos, not with hesitation, but with a response so layered and so precise that the only rational choice was to turn around. Nothing exploded that day. No missiles flew. No ships sank. But in the quiet hum of the Combat Information Center, in the disciplined silence of the bridge, in the steady hands of sailors who had trained for exactly this moment, a message was delivered. It did not need to be spoken. It was understood. And somewhere off the Iranian coast, 8 small boats returned to ports carrying that message with them. The destroyer held its course through the night. The Gulf darkened around it, the water turning black under a sky smeared with stars. Watch rotations continued. Radar screens kept sweeping. The ship moved like it always moved, steady, deliberate, indifferent to what had almost happened. But below decks, in the mess halls and berthing compartments, conversations were quieter than usual. Not because anyone was shaken, but because everyone understood. They had rehearsed that scenario 100 times in drills. They had trained against simulated swarms in war games and exercises. But simulation and reality were separated by something untrained and replicable. Every sailor who stood at a weapon station that afternoon knew that the next second could have changed everything. A single missile launch from one of those boats, a single miscalculation, a single moment of hesitation, a reaction. The margin between a routine incident report and a front page international crisis was measured in heartbeats, and they had held that margin, not with aggression, not with panic, with procedure, with precision, with the kind of quiet professionalism that never makes headlines but keeps the world from tilting off its axis. The next morning, the sun rose over the Gulf exactly as it always did. The ship was already miles away,